I want to share briefly a reading. I shared it at Richard's dad's funeral service, and it touched me in that moment to the fact that I was sitting back there doing this number. It's a Paul Harvey, "What Are Fathers Made Of?" moment. A father is a thing that is forced to endure childbirth without an anesthetic. I can already hear the women gritting their teeth. A father is a thing that growls when it feels good and always laughs very loud when it's scared half to death. A father is sometimes accused of giving too much time to his business when the little ones are growing up. That's partly fear too. Fathers are much more easily frightened than mothers. A father never feels entirely worthy of the worship in a child's eyes. He's never quite the hero his daughter thinks, never quite the man his son believes him to be. This worries him sometimes. So he works too hard to try and smooth the rough places in the road for those of his own who will follow him. A father is a thing that gets very angry when the first school grades aren't as good as he thinks they should be. He scolds his son, though he knows it's the teacher's fault. It's the case at our house. A father is a thing that goes away to war sometimes. He learns to swear and shoot and spit through his teeth and would run the other way, except that this war is part of his only important job in life, which is making the world better for his child than it has been for him. Fathers grow old faster than people, because they in other ways have to stand at the train station and wave goodbye to the uniform that climbs aboard. And while mothers can cry where it shows, fathers have to stand there and beam outside and die inside. Fathers have very stout hearts, so they have to be broken sometimes or no one would know what's inside. Fathers are what gives daughters away to other men who aren't nearly good enough, so they can have grandchildren that are smarter than anybody else's. Fathers fight dragons almost daily. They hurry away from the breakfast table off to the arena, which is sometimes called an office or a workshop. And there, with calloused, practiced hands, they tackle the dragon with 3 heads: weariness, work, and monotony. And they never quite win the fight, but they never give up. Knights in shining armor, fathers in shiny trousers. There's little difference as they march away to each workday. Fathers make bets with insurance companies about who will live the longest. Though they know the odds, they keep right on betting. Even as the odds get higher and higher, they keep right on betting more and more. And one day they lose. But fathers enjoy an earthly immortality, and the bet's paid off to the part of him he leaves behind. I don't know where fathers go when they die, but I have an idea that after a good rest, wherever it is, he won't be happy unless there's work to do. He won't just sit on a cloud and wait for the girl he's loved and the children she bore. He'll be busy there too, repairing the stairs, oiling the gates, improving the streets, smoothing the way. Isn't that awesome? That's what dads do. I think Paul Harvey captures for us the mind of most of us men in the process. What drives us, what brings us meaning and purpose. Dads are such amazing creatures, aren't they? I speak as one with experience, you know. We're always supposed to have all the right answers, know what to do and when to do it. We're to lead the family in work and play and worship. And while it sounds like a pretty great gig, truthfully, most of us don't have the foggiest idea what we're supposed to do next. But here's what I do know. The closer I walk with God, the more passionate I pursue after righteousness, the more desperately I cling to Christ and walk in honesty and integrity, the more I stay in bounds. The effects of my mistakes are minimalized, and the more positively I am able to influence the people under my roof and those around me. Truthfully, yesterday I was exhausted from camp, and working on a Father's Day sermon was right about the bottom of my list of things I'd like to do. But it's Sunday, and everybody always expects a sermon on Sunday. What would you do if one Sunday I just showed up and we did everything but the sermon and left? Would that be good or bad? I don't know. But I was sitting in the office working away and wondering what on earth I would say this morning. And there was a proverb from an old men's Bible study that just filled my mind as I sat there. It's not going to make for a long sermon, which is good. But this proverb is so powerful. The righteous man walks in his integrity. His children are blessed after him. Men, my response to this proverb is simple. Our righteousness matters because it's what enables us to walk with integrity. And our integrity matters because of all of the little people that come behind us and follow. Even long after we're gone, the future is shaped by us in a good way if we do it right. What a glorious thing to think about. Just the ordinary living of our daily lives will either bless our children and our grandchildren or it won't bless them. It matters how we live. It matters how we react. It matters how we speak. It matters what we do. All who follow in our footsteps are watching whether we see them or not. What we establish as normal, according to the heart of this proverb, is what our children will establish as normal as well. Men, if we want to make the world a better place, we have to take seriously this scriptural mandate for righteousness, for holiness, and for integrity. Everything about our lives that matters depends upon that. I want to take that a step farther briefly this morning. We just got back from camp, and like Sandra, I echo her sentiment of how thankful I are for all the support that our church provides for our kids who go to camp, and even for our adults. We come home and we talk about how awesome camp is and was, and most of you I know are envisioning that we're at Disney World for a week just eating cotton candy and riding all the rides. I wish that were the case. While, along with Avery, I'll agree this was one of the greatest weeks of camp I've ever gotten to be a part of, it was also one of the most difficult. You know, here in our sanctuary, we're so isolated. We're sheltered from the pain and the heartache and the dysfunctionality that so many of our kids are forced to grow up in our world today. Kids from broken homes, kids fostered that are shuffled from house to house with their trash bags slung over their shoulder. Kids who've been abused and kids who are more than likely still being abused even today. Kids who have no idea who one or both of their parents are and who have never celebrated Father's Day in their lives. Kids who are grieving, kids who have nobody to call their own. It's a sad, sad place for many of the children of the world. And it's our job, men primarily and women as well, but our job as followers of Jesus to enter into that world with the hope of the gospel and the love of Jesus Christ and change their circumstances. We were cleaning up on Thursday and we were supposed to be cleaning up, and Bert and Sandra and I just kind of lost steam for a minute. And we were sitting in the tabernacle at Brush Creek, and there were just random papers thrown all over the place. And there was this one particular paper that Sandra picked up, and you could see as she read it, her face just kind of went to just disgust. It was a paper from her seminar. And I'm sure, or workshop or whatever it's called. And part of the things that they did in their workshop were the kids at camp were writing letters to to orphan children in Myanmar that Jeff Bunning's ministry deals with. And I guess they had specific orphans because this one has a name. But this little girl wrote a letter to an orphan in Myanmar. Dear Kubla Khan, or whatever, I can't even read the name and I couldn't pronounce it right if I could. We are somewhat, this is a 12-year-old girl. We are somewhat alike. My mom and dad are both addicts too. And that sucks. But I moved in with my aunt and uncle and my grandpa. Every little kid's dream, right? I'm a little older than you, and yes, I do live in America, but I don't always get to eat. We can't afford to. You're a survivor. I see you like math, and that's really cool. It's not my favorite, but it's cool for you. Goodbye, 12-year-old girl. Hey, mom and dad are addicts, so I have to live with my aunt and uncle and my grandpa. That's the optimal environment for a kid to grow up in. I guess maybe we're okay with it if it's in Myanmar or if it's in Africa or if it's somewhere else, but that's not supposed to happen here. And then to find out that she doesn't eat all the time because they can't afford food. In the United States of God bless America, little kids don't get to eat. Men, we're called to do something about this, is my opinion. And I wasn't going to go there, and I promised myself I wouldn't do it. But you know, right now in our country, it's a train wreck. And I don't care what political affiliation you have or don't have. I'm seeing that our government is ripping children away from their parents. Certainly we need to have some immigration change, but that's wrong. And don't call on the Jesus of this cross if you think that's right. There are children in this world that are living hell. And we're worried about getting to the ball game. And we're worried about getting a new boat. And we're worried about getting a new tractor. Or whatever it is. Men, we're called to so much more than that. And we live such simple little lives that totally miss the point of what God made us men for in the first place. To stand and defend the defenseless. And to care for the uncared for. Gosh dang, I about blew this Father's Day. Way to go me. I just can't read this darn letter and not break down in tears and be torn apart on the inside. This was one kid. One. I can't tell you how many kids out of the 2 million we had at camp that come from complete and total hell. They were awful. I don't misunderstand. They sang like angels, but they were awful in worship. They don't have a reason not to be. It's the only place on planet Earth that they can talk and people will listen. The only place on planet Earth where they're not being abused. Not being hungry. Not sleeping on a floor. Not wearing dirty clothes day after day after day. It's not just our kids, men, that are to be blessed by our righteousness and our integrity. If the lives that we're living don't go beyond our own yards, then we're missing the point of Jesus Christ. Much as John the Baptist prepared the way for Jesus, as I understand the Scripture, we are to prepare the way for life and hope and faith and love for all who would notice our meager little existence. We're to straighten out the curves and flatten the hills. Smooth out the rough places so that those who walk behind us don't have to trip, stumble, and struggle just to survive, let alone thrive. So, today, men, certainly we're grateful for the godly influence that you have provided for us. But I want to challenge and encourage us to go farther. I want to suggest that we have more of a job than most of us want to admit. We have a community and a world to impact that requires us to draw close to Jesus Christ and to stay there. And yet somehow in that moment allow even the ordinariness of our lives to make an impact. May God bless the world. May God bless the children of the world as He uses His men to do so. Would you pray with me? God, this morning we come to a close. And there are so many injustices in the world. And Michael, you tell us what you require. That we do justice and we love kindness and we walk humbly with you. You don't want great offerings. You don't want great singing. Our worship of you is to be seen in how we treat the people of the world. God, speak to our hearts today, that we as men might stand up and acknowledge the true calling that you have placed on our lives. Use your men, O God, to change the world one kid at a time. This we ask in His name. Amen.